How's it going, everybody? This is a spoiler-heavy review for Superman. That's right. This is the James Gunn directed DCU first film of the DCU. And so I'm going to give a full-on spoiler discussion, man. Let's get into it. We're going to do some more of these talks on Monday. I'll be doing a live show with Rocha, doing a full-on discussion on the live stuff. I'll have a spoiler discussion that I'll be doing with the Capes and Cowls guys next Friday. So it'll be a full week of spoiler discussions for Superman. So, all right, getting into it right away and trying to see, like, okay, what are they going to show here? What kind of way they're going to establish who this Superman is, what the world is, and they open up, and it's not necessarily. There were rumors that it was like a crawl, and it wasn't. It wasn't a crawl. It was just kind of like more of a couple of paragraphs of this is what's happened recently, and here's the setup. There have been a bunch of metahumans. Just let you guys know, this is what the world is. It's not like these things are going to start showing up in this movie. Nobody's going to know what it is. They're very aware of it. And then 3 years ago, Superman revealed himself to the world. And then they go, N3. And then they said 3 days ago, I think he lost his first battle. So then when you get right away, when they say he lost his first battle, you go, okay, well, you know that we're probably going to get that thing we saw in the trailer because we are in the snow, and then lo and behold, he hits the snow, and he's wheezing, and the blood is showing. Now, there were two things though that I thought of when I saw this. Now, after having context from it, because in the trailer, you're like, wow, he really gets messed up. What the hell goes down in order for that to happen? And I'm telling you right now. You guys can correct me in the comments. I'm sure there's stuff that I missed. And if I'm going through it, you're like, well, they cleared that up. I've seen the movie once. So if you like, well, they said that and I missed it, then I missed it. But I didn't see anything that said, okay, Superman was fighting with against a guy with kryptonite, whatever, and we realize who it is. It's a clone of himself that he's fighting. So maybe that's one of the reasons why this guy's able to kick his ass in the way that he is. But nonetheless, they say he lost his big battle. He got his ass kicked in, and he hits the ground. And then we see the scene, and here comes Krypto. Now, I think the good part about, if you've seen the trailer already, and that, so if you didn't know what was coming, and Krypto just shows up, might be jarring. Like, what the hell is a super dog out of nowhere? But this movie's been marketed enough that you knew Krypto was going to be involved. So when he shows up and they showed this particular scene, it was like the first thing they really showed inside this trailer. It's not jarring. You know what's going to happen. He comes in and he's prancing around, and they set up Krypto enough, at least for me, that he's just this kind of erratic dog that it turns out to be Supergirl's dog, which I don't know if I want to jump into Supergirl right away and then let's go through everything. We'll get to Supergirl when we get there. But we find out as we go through that Krypto doesn't really he doesn't really understand what's going on. He's goofing around, he's playing, and we get that right away. For Superman is just like, can't control this dog. He's like, dude, I need you to take me home. Help me out. Take me home. So he drags him to the place. He sees the robots, and I like that there was a lot of like kind of Mantis is in there, and Michael Rooker is in there, and Alan Tudyk is like the main robot. So I like how James Gunn uses his peeps for that particular one. But this is where the humor kind of pops in, and you can see people perhaps having an issue with it. But to me, this is where it set the tone of like, okay, this is what this movie's going to be all the way through, because it hits. Krypto is jumping around. You're like, okay, so they're, even though it's supposed to be kind of this big serious moment that he's hurt, they want you to giggle it off a little bit because here's this goofy dog, and we've all been in that situation where you have an unruly dog and he doesn't really know the rules, and okay, there's the comedy in that right away. Then you get to the robots, and the robots are trying to take care of him, and here's like, oh, this is the new girl. It's like, oh, he looked at me, and I didn't love it in the trailer, I didn't love it in the movie, but it's like, okay, fine, it's over, and now the point is they've got to get him into the sun. So he gets into the sun, and when I was watching the movie, I said, well, why doesn't he just, if he can fly, I guess he flew, he was really hurt. We didn't know the extent of it, but he lands in the ice. Could he not get close enough to the sun to get powered back up? Or could he not lay somewhere where the sun is going to hit him? Or what I ultimately told myself is, well, yeah, he probably could have, but it probably took a long time. They set him up in this place where this ray is just hitting him full blast. So his bones heal, everything else heals, and off he goes. And there's two things that happen. Well, the thing that I liked is that they were about to say, like, we're trying to take care of this dog. It's an unruly dog, and this is who we're dealing with here. So, like, okay, so we know this is pretty much just who Crypto is, right? But they heal him back up. He flies back in, and this is when we see Lex and the rest of the crew going, okay, here he is. He's coming back, and we know that he's going to be fighting Ultraman and having this battle in the city. So he has the battle. He comes back, and he loses again. Not to the extent where he's bleeding and wheezing and all that, but he loses, and it just kind of abruptly just kind of says, "Oh yeah, he lost," and he's kind of go on. Now he just got to switch to the next thing. He lost. That's it. Take it as it is. There was no really follow up to it. It's just like, okay, he lost. But what they did very well was in setting up Metropolis, looking how people are. Then they set it up that people are behind Superman. The majority of people love Superman. They set up the fact that there's trolls and stuff online that are going after him, but we find out later on those are just kind of monkeys and literal monkeys that are just kind of working for Lex. But they set up Lex, they set up his crew. Thing that I like is the scale of the battle. Again, I felt like I was watching a Saturday morning cartoon / comic book where you see this huge battle that he's having. The thing I didn't like was Miss Tessmacher taking selfie shots and all that. It just doesn't feel like she is scared at all too. I get that she's there, she's with Lex, and I guess that's the whole point. She's taking all these pictures because she then is going to have, ammo for him at the end. So I guess there is a reason for it clearly. So there's more to it in hindsight. So maybe when I was initially watching it and then understanding what the reveal is, you kind of understand. But the battle itself, again, really felt like a full-on comic book film. And then they do a good job of kind of setting up because it jumps from Superman losing again to him as Clark Kent. One of the few times that we get to see Clark Kent. I thought David Corensweat did a great job as Clark Kent. And he goes in, he's talking to Lois, and then Lois pretty much is saying that about the interview, and he was able to interview himself. Jimmy throws in the part that Superman got his ass kicked, and then this is setting up this version of Superman. It's like, well, I don't think he really got his ass kicked. I don't really think he got beat up. I mean, come on. And then we get to the place. This is what I said in my out of the theater reaction, or was that a theater reaction or non-spoiler? I can't remember. This is one of the moments I was talking about when Lois gets into the apartment and the music is swelling. Well, there's two. We already know that it's Clark or Superman that's in the kitchen because we've seen the trailer. That's part one. Part two. If you didn't see it, are we supposed to be fooled at that moment that there's actually like an intruder in there? Or is it just kind of a fun bit of like, okay, we know what's about to happen here. This is just fun. Just enjoy it. Because they do like the big swelling music. And then they have Rachel Brosnahan come in. And then she has this moment with Clark in the kitchen. And I thought it was a sweet moment. He picks her up. He's kissing her. It's established to let us know, hey, these two, they're a thing already. They are in this relationship. It's new. It's fresh. It's in the honeymoon stages. But they are very much into each other. And, they start kind of talking about work. And when you're working with your significant other at that point, you ain't going to go rosy because he's like, hey, nice the way you're playing that up. She's like, well, I wasn't really playing it up. And then there's the interview that he's like, okay, I'll let you interview me. And and this is, again, I think some people have issues with this. I didn't. People are like, oh, he gets too pissed off too quick. I think it shows the human side in him. I think it shows the fact that he is actually, the emotions that are there and the weight that's on his shoulders. And I should jump back, by the way, into that scene when he's getting powered up with the sun. It sets up the fact that what calms him is the message from his family, his parents, of saying this is what you need to do, and they translated it. And I love that it was in another language. I loved that. I loved that Kryptonians weren't speaking English. Why would they? Loved that they were speaking another language. Bradley Cooper, of course, playing Jor-El. I wasn't as familiar with the actress. I will say, I think that this is the conversation I'm going to have with both Rocha and Capes guys. I don't know about how I feel about the reveal of the message at the end, with the fact that Jor-El and his wife actually wanted him to rule. I'm still hoping, like in another movie, we find out that that's horse shit. I don't like the fact that Jor-El wanted him to rule and dominate humans. That wasn't for me. Maybe that's the purist in me on the Superman character as far as Jor-El goes. I liked Marlon Brando's interpretation. I liked Russell Crowe's interpretation of it. I don't love, and I think Bradley Cooper's fine. He's just reading the message. It wasn't anything in the performance. I just don't know if I like that reveal yet. I think that's one of the ones I got to have conversations with and see, like, okay, convince me of why that was the right choice. Maybe you do that in comments. I don't know. But yes, I jumped way ahead. But in that interview, but what it did do, and showing that, and it all relates to the fact that he's just trying to hold on to his humanity the entire time, right? And trying to be kind and trying to be just. That's what I really liked about the movie. The idea of just the pure, what Superman really is all about, of just caring for humanity overall. And it's also why he is getting so frustrated inside of this interview, where Lois is asking the right questions inside of what a reporter should do. And she's saying, okay, you invaded this thing, you did this, you did that, you got involved when you were supposed to, you didn't you didn't talk to the president, you didn't talk to these people, you didn't do this. And he gets frustrated. It's like, people were going to die. And it goes to show, this is what I can do. I'm allowed to do this because I'm not acting on, I live in the United States, but I'm not acting on the United States. I'm acting on me in what I believe is true. And I know that I can do these things, and I wanted to prevent people from dying. And instead of conversations and all this, I did something about it. But in the world of rules, you also understand that that's maybe not what he should have done or could have done, or should have done, because here's Lois telling him and asking these questions. Look, I agree with you. There are these things, but you have to go through the right challenge. You have to do things. And I like the moment when they keep pausing it. It's just a relationship. You can't tell them that. You clearly can't tell them that. Well, don't say it if it's off the record. Those are the little bits of humor that I really liked. Like I said, there were some bits of humor in there that I thought was really good. There were some times that it didn't work. But I thought this particular way, in the way that this kind of bickering between the two couples in this intense moment, did work. And I don't think it was just kind of like a type of humor. And there was some of that in this, for sure, in this movie, but not there. But nonetheless, it shows the frustration, and it also shows where Lois is like, I don't know if this is going to work. Little harsh, but she was just saying, I don't know if it's going to work. I'm not good in relationships. To which Clark is like, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean? And then we get deeper into the character of kind of Lex, where Lex is going. Lex through this entire thing, and this is what I said in my non-spoiler. The character development in all of these characters, I think, could have been handled a little bit more, right? And maybe a little deeper, because Nicholas Hoult is such a spectacular actor that really if I ask you, like, what is the motivation for Lex? And I'm guaranteeing that most of you are going to go is hatred for Superman and wanting to take Superman out. That's his motivation. Sure. And it really is the essence of what Lex Luthor is all about. He doesn't want this alien coming in here and causing chaos, as he thinks it is, but it's more so of where Superman is actually trying to help, and he's trying to expose Superman in any which way that he can, which is an aspect that I liked. I just wanted to see it. He was very, I don't want to say mustache twirling, but he was very evil. You just you hate him from the beginning. He's definitely a comic book villain, and that's what they're going for in this one, and it succeeds because, again, Nicholas Hoult is so good, and you've got him and his crew. They're able to find the Fortress of Solitude, and when they do, that's when they are able to get that message out, to find the message and say, okay, because he tries to before that, and he sits down with Rick Flag Sr., and he's telling them, he's like, this guy he's bad news, you guys got to get him out of there, let's go. And we can't do anything without it. We don't have any proof. There's no proof. And I love that scene. I love that scene where they're just like, look, I don't necessarily love the guy, but but right now if you don't have any proof, I can't just arrest him. We can't just call for his people. He's popular. People like him. People like what he's doing. He's good. And I liked where the way A, Frank Grillo played Rick Flag, and B, the way that they kind of wrote him. He's just like, and he's kind of made his way up the ranks, and he's just like, no, this is a big decision here, and Big Blue hasn't really done anything for us to do it. So no, and they can't agree on it. So that's where Lex really gets pissed off, and that's when he's got to find a way to get into the Fortress of Solitude to, again, get Superman, get this information on him. So in order to do that, this is when I think for the comic book, this is where some people, I believe, that if you're expecting a more grounded Superman, you're going to be out of this quick when it comes to the kaiju part of it. But again, I think a smart move of it was that they put it in the trailer, so he's fighting monsters. All these different things are happening. So for me, when I saw it, I was like, okay, that little thing right there that they lit off the truck, that's going to be the big monster that he's fighting. And this scene worked for me because here's this big kaiju running around the damn metropolis, wrecking shop, destroying stuff, and Superman comes in, and he's not only does he start fighting him, but this is when we're now introduced to Mr. Terrific, who I think I called Mr. Fantastic 8,000 times in my non-spoiler review. I was tired and also was wrong. But Mr. Terrific, who was terrific in this role, Mr. Terrific, Hawkeye, see? And Hawkeye. I changed Mr. Fantastic to Hawkeye. Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner come in, and the dynamic, they set that up immediately. Now, this is one of those things where there are a lot of plot points in here, and I think that what you need to do is get the audience used to the fact that there are metahumans here. I think so. But I can understand the criticism of there's so much they should just focus on Superman. I thought there was a lot of focus on Superman throughout it, but this is where this particular scene, and this is where you can make the argument of well, why did you even need them there? And I think it's to establish, as they do in the beginning with the opening paragraph, that these people are out there. And I liked the bit about the Justice Gang or whatever the hell they were calling themselves, and he didn't like them, and then this is where you're going to come in and correct me, right? I don't remember what the multi-rock layer thing guy was with that turned his hand into kryptonite with his son. I can't remember it. I don't remember the name. Comic book fans who know it can scream and yell at me in the comments. It's fine. I don't remember his name. I'll call him Rock Boy. And so at the end, when Rock Boy basically tells Guy Gardner that he likes the name of it, I like that bit. That was a very Guardians of the Galaxy 3 bit to me. Or Guardians in Galaxy in general, when they're walking through and he's like, I don't want this guy on the team. And he's like, that's the name? I love that name. He's like, you're in. It was a good bit. I like that bit. But that scene where you show a lot of the personalities of all three of them and what they're doing. You see how smart Mr. Terrific is. You see how much of a badass and a kind of what a great fighter Hawkgirl is. And then you can see the same thing with Guy Gardner, because I didn't know a lot about Guy Gardner just from, I said a lot of the same things that everyone else said. I said, that's the stupidest haircut ever. And they call attention to that, obviously, with Lois later on. I was like, is he going to be a pure goof? He's not. And I kept having people tell me, well, no. He's just kind of, he's a good Green Lantern, but he's just such a jackass. And this way, he's just pompous, but he's a good guy. That all played for me, from hearing who he was supposed to be in the comics to what Nathan Fillion did in here. That all played for me, and it all worked. And I liked the dynamic that the three of them had for sure. And even when Clark, and again, showing who Clark is and showing how good Superman is, when he's flying around, he's having this fight and he's doing these things, and he's like, let's try to return him to an intergalactic zoo or something. Let's not kill this thing. And they don't listen. They blow up its heart and they kill the thing right in the middle of it. Everyone's excited. Yay. They did it. And that's when that big reveal happens of, oh, guess what? Superman wanted to dominate and kill all of us. So this is the part that I mentioned beforehand where I was hoping, and I'm of two minds of this. The first part is I was hoping that message was going to be doctored, that it was going to be, well, Lex doing his thing and saying, oh, I actually did do this, even though I had one of my lackeys, she got into the system and she found out what it is, but I was able to alter it, and that's what it's ultimately saying, right? But the part that I guess I do like is they do something different here when you're expecting that to happen. And Mr. Terrific goes, no, listen, out of all the things that I could say, out of all the experts that looked into that thing, that's what they're saying. I like that element of it. I just don't like the fact that Jor-El, from being a fan of Superman and at least the movies and stuff when I was growing up, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the comic book stuff too, Jor-El was never, ever a bad guy. Maybe in one line he was a comic book line. I'm not on one run. I'm not sure. Again, you can tell me in the comics, but the fact that he wanted his son to do this, I don't love it, but I understand the element of where they were, why they needed to do it in this particular storyline. Because by doing it that way, you now set up the fact that, okay, everything that this guy knew and everything that he followed in that first half, he's challenging that now, because now what was really said inside of that mission was to do this. And then the question starts to mess with you of like, well, what if I would have actually followed that and seen the whole message and it didn't get messed up in the recording? Would I be the person that I am today? And that is where the importance of the Kents came in. And Mike Kalinowski, who's on my show, big DC fan, predicted the fact that both the Kents would be alive in this aspect. So it is, again, to me, knowing that they've done this in certain comic book runs, not ones that I have read, but I always thought that the thing that made Superman have to realize that even though he has all these powers, he can't save everybody, is when it's one of my favorite moments in the Donner Superman, when his dad just holds his arm and just drops dead, and Superman can't do anything about it. And he says, I have all these powers, I couldn't do anything. That to me is a moment that was missing, but they were going for something here, and I understand why they're doing it, because it just showed what I just said. And it's ultimately like the last shot of it was because had he listened to his birth parents in that whole message, who knows what would have happened, but he was lucky enough to be raised by these two people who were in his heart of hearts now. That's why they end with it. And I love the moment of it where he's like, play the thing for my parents. And it's actually his parents it's the Kents, and showing how important they are to him. And they're the reason, like having good parents and having that kind of upbringing shows you ultimately what this guy became, and why he became who he was is because of those two people. So I did like the idea that they kept the two of them around. I understand why they did. It was different. That wasn't one to me in the same way that I said with Jor-El. I'm like, I don't know about that. Making this decision of keeping them alive, I understand, again, from what they were doing with telling this story. But they're able to capture Superman and bring him in once he kind of gives himself up. And I love that too. I love that he's walking through, and they kept that shot, obviously, when he is when he's walking back. But he flies back, and even before that, he flies back to the Fortress of Solitude. And I loved that shot. I loved that shot of him super pissed off, flying with everything, whacking him in the head. He's going as fast as he can. And you like in that scene, and I don't know if you guys saw it in IMAX or how you saw it even in Dolby, the sound that's coming through when he's flying through. That to me was the most intense, one of the most intense scenes. Like I felt like I was right there with him flying through as he gets to the Fortress of Solitude, and he's there and he's talking to the robots, and he's trying, and that was why I don't know if they could have had, they don't really needed that line where the robots didn't feel emotion and the robots didn't really care about the dog dying. Those are some of the jokes, and because I felt like, it's almost like this AI that they could have had with it, that it was kind of learning and these other things that it made me like, I did feel that he's like, we just wanted to protect you. We just wanted to do that. I felt like you did have emotion. I don't think you needed that first part of it beforehand, but because when the robot, and I wish I wouldn't have shown that in the trailer, by the way, too. The fact that, they came in, they destroyed all the robots, because that was a really good emotional moment, and I like that. One of the things, and speaking of that moment when they went back, so the good and the bad, right? The good is when Lex shows up with his crew to the Fortress of Solitude and just comes in and dominates. Loved them doing that, because showing ultimately, what we get to reveal afterwards, the reason he's able to do it is because he's been playing the long game. He has Ultraman is a clone of Superman, so he has his DNA. He's able to get in. Because Superman even says, "How'd you get in here? You can't get in with my DNA." And I love that, how they were able to do that. All that was great. One of the things that drove me crazy, and this is not just in this movie, this is in every movie when they do this, it doesn't make your bad guy look cool or anybody look cool when all this chaos is going around and fighting and you're just walking straight-faced. How do you know that one of those things isn't going to come in and hit you in the face? And he's walking right by, and like things are just, he's so cool that nothing bothers him, and everything is just going by. I hate shit like that. I hate it, and not just this movie, in every movie, like when the bad guy or good guy is just so cool, they can walk by anything. It's like there are things flying around. Something would hit you in the head. That part, yes, that is as nitpicky as you're gonna get. It's just one of my little quips. I didn't like that part. But again, there was so much in that scene that I did like. Going back then, he gives himself up. Loved the scene with him and Rick Flag where he's just like, look, man, this is what it is. It goes back because I wish, and I think that it's, again, setting up the fact that Rick's going to have more to do. Clearly, he's going to have more to do in Peacemaker Season 2. Oh, and we didn't even talk about that. The cameo with Peacemaker. I loved how they kept that quiet. Nobody knew that was coming. And it was so on par with Peacemaker's character, where he's just shitting on Superman the whole time. And he's just basically going after him, and he's not on his side. He's not. Why would he? Why would he? I love that they brought him in, and I love that they were able to relate that to him. And the fact that we're going to see Rick Flag with Peacemaker, I think that's the intent of putting Rick Flag in here, because he didn't have a lot to do in this particular movie. It was great. Frank Grillo's amazing, but he just didn't have a lot to do. And I think it's more so to say, look, he's part of this thing. He was the voice in Creature Commandos. He's going to have a big role in Peacemaker, at least I think. And so when he's walking Soups to basically this crazy camp in this created universe that whatever it was, whatever was it called? I forget. He opened up the black hole or whatever it was. Lex did, and he goes in and he puts him in the scene. That's when Rockface, he sees him and he's there. And he's holding it. He's basically, because he's got the thing's kid, and Superman is just, again, vulnerable, hurt, and I liked that. I like that he's not like super indestructible the whole entire time, and he just keeps getting himself into some shit. And it also, I mean, how many times was he Clark in this movie? 2 or 3 times. On the flip side, they're trying to get Lois and Jimmy. And Jimmy, Skyler was great as Jimmy Olsen. He's one of my favorites. He was great as Jimmy Olsen. He was so good in general of this back and forth, and that he's this Miss Tessmacher thing, and he's kind of, and the fact that he's a ladies' man, we don't even really know why. Lois at one point goes, "How do you do it?" He just kind of shoos it off and doesn't say to worry about it. Whatever it might be, she's been his source. And she's the one that ultimately gives him, the information on Lex and meets him in the alley and does all that stuff. And I liked those moments. That's the type of humor for me, again, that worked. Even though I think that the Miss Tessmacher was almost in a different movie. It was like, I didn't necessarily believe she was real. She seemed so much like a comic book or a cartoon. There was not like that. But Jimmy was brilliant. He was brilliant. I loved him in this movie. Loved him. So they settled in trying to figure out like where he is. Superman's trying to negotiate with the Rock guy, and he says, I'll go and fly in there and I'll help your kid. And I also love that moment that when he finally does, well, even before that, when Lex brings in that poor bastard that was that we saw earlier that gave Superman food outside, and Lex trying to get information out of him. And then this was, to me, a very raw moment. Shoots him, kills him dead. Right there. Superman's pissed off about it, hurting about it. There was great acting by Corensweat, I believe, like the pain that he sees. And it's, again, showing how much Superman really cares about everyone. And Lois even says it, that how much he trusts everybody and sees the good in everybody and like loves everybody. And you see that there. You see that there with that particular moment. He's like, I only met the guy once, but whatever it was. And that's, but I also liked the idea. At first, I wasn't sure how I felt about it, but I like the fact that it really disturbed the Rocky guy. And you keep yelling at me. It's fine. I don't remember his name. I don't remember it. And he's part of it. He's probably like I know he's like a big character. Sorry, sue me. But either way, the fact that it affected him, and he's like, you can say my kid? Fine, go do it. And he's like, why do you still look gross at that point? Like, that's probably one of the lines that people had a problem with. I didn't. I thought it was because he did. He had veins in his face. And Superman's reaction to it was great. He's like, I don't know. I'm not sure. He's like, and I assume it's because I need the sun. There's no sun here. So then he does. It creates the sun. Superman goes in, gets himself out. And, we're back in business. He's got to go and he's got to fight Lex and do the whole thing. And then the whole big battle at the end happens, where you also, I skipped over the whole part with Mr. Terrific and Lois kind of working together. And there was that moment where you get to see what Mr. Terrific really can do with his technology and everything else. And he's protecting Lois. I don't know if I needed the holy shit. That's all that. I don't know if I needed that. But speaking of Lois and Rachel Brosnahan, excellent as Lois Lane. I thought she, again, knew the assignment, knew what to do here, had that kind of hard edge, good reporter, let's get it done. But she also has a different responsibility from a lot of different Lois Lanes where she's already in the relationship. The other Lois Lanes kind of led to the relationship. Well, that's not true. Bosworth was already in the relationship, but it's nonetheless, she's in the middle of the relationship because Bosworth was, I guess that was the relationship was over and they were trying to, and she was now married to Marsden or whatever it was. But now they're in the middle of this relationship, but she's really going there to not to save Superman, but to save the guy that she loves. And when Mr. Terrific even says it, and that moment, by the way, when she has to go there and she's trying to convince Hawkgirl and Guy Gardner, again, we see what Guy Gardner is all about there. He's like, and they're having these conversations. And I loved the moment. It was one of my favorite moments, actually. He's like, do I think that Soups is really there to dominate, to take over the world? No, I don't, but it doesn't matter. It's certainly, and he didn't care. He still wasn't going to go. And I love that Hawkgirl didn't want to go. She's like, no, we're not sitting there. We're not going to go. And Lois gets pissed off. She takes off, makes fun of the haircut, and leaves. And even in that previous scene, when they confronted Superman, or Guy Gardner confronted him when they went after the kaiju and they present that. And I love that thing when Guy blocks out the entire thing. Like, look, I'll confront this guy. You stay out of it, everybody else. Let me do it. And that moment was great too. It gave Guy Gardner had a lot to do. He really did. You learned a lot about him inside of this movie in general. But when Lois finally, Mr. Terrific comes out, he says, "Okay, I'll tell you a moment that I didn't like. It was such a James Gunn humor moment that wasn't necessary in this particular one. I did, and I think I rolled my eyes when I was watching it in the theater. The garage door scene. I get it. I get the bit. We don't need it right there. We do not need that bit at that moment where we already got the humor. I got so many good jokes inside that whole scene with Lois and Guy. She just made fun of his haircut. All that and more. It was great. And we had a lot of good moments. There was funny stuff that Hawkgirl said about Guy Gardner, and said, look, whatever she said, pretty much along the lines of that the guy's an asshole, but I agree with mostly everything that he said except the last part, whatever it was. Funny moments, didn't have an issue with a lot of that. Mr. Terrific comes out and says, I'm gonna help you. I believe in this thing too. Let's do it. And then she's like, we'll take my car. He goes, we'll take my ship. Good joke. That's it. And then he gets this ship and this stupid door. Here we go. It's funny. Why? Because it's taking so long. I'm like, let's go. She's like, you have all this stuff. You don't have a faster door. It's like, that to me is just how funny it would be if they're going on the thing and then this happens. That's one of those jokes at that point to me wasn't necessary. Didn't ruin anything for me in general, just kind of slowed it down. But then again, you're probably watching going, I loved that moment. I thought that moment worked great. It was a good bit. And I think that's the difference with some of the subjective humor, right? And as where I'm seeing some people might have disagreed with me that in the middle of the scene where Lois is trying to convince these guys that there's jokes being had, I thought it fit the characters there. It's moments like that, the garage door, that I don't think it fits the moment when you're trying to go, okay, let's go rescue this guy. That to me was a Guardians of the Galaxy moment that didn't fit Superman. The other stuff did, very much so. But you get to the fact that now they're in the ship, they head on over. He has this moment. He's kicking ass. We get to see really what Mr. Terrific's going to do. He gets inside of the universe. He explains all the rules about it, which I dug that, and I loved everything they were saying there about how this worked and what he did and what could essentially happen. And then we get in. Superman then gets free. Krypto gets free. And forgot that whole moment that happened with that. I guess because I saw the scene of ultimately when Superman kind of gives himself up, or when they take him, when he comes in to say, "Hey, where's my dog?" and he has that yelling and screaming moment where he's all pissed off about his mutt. But when he finally goes to get the dog, he gets captured and put in that prison. We've covered that already. But when he breaks out, he gets the dog back. Krypto's doing his thing. Also, he's able to, and he's breaking up. I guess that's at the very end. But I thought they used Krypto well. I thought they used them well, like in how they certain aspects. He wasn't all over the movie, but when they used him, he was consistent in how goofy he was, but also kind of this wild maniac dog. And then when he gets to they wind up getting into the huge big battle. And that's when all the shit goes down. The foreign government, finally, the one that is working with Lex, goes and invades and does exactly what he was going to do. But this time, Guy Gardner shows up with Hawkgirl, and they do their thing. They're able to, have it shows up. It looks like it's going to be, well, they're waiting for Superman, but it shows that his super friends are going to help out. And meanwhile, he's the one now battling in Metropolis, doing everything he's got to do he's got his powers back. He's able to fight. We find out the reveal with Ultraman. And it's now this big kind of huge blockbuster summer movie ending that we're expecting at this point, right? And Superman, and this is after he's had the conversation with his parents, because they take him back after he's injured. They take him back to his parents. He's able to have that moment with his dad. His dad tells him he's really proud of him, and that's why we get that moment, as I was talking about before, of really knowing who Superman was. But when we get to the final battle, we get the reveal of Ultraman, and he's just kind of, it had very much Winter Soldier vibes for me when he's fighting the Ultraman and who Ultraman is and the reveal of it. And then, from there, the majority of it is just that battle to where it turns around. Krypto kind of comes and saves the day, eats all the materials, the drones or whatever it is, and Lex is finally defeated. And that, to me, that whole thing of, because there's really not much to dive into inside of that. At least I don't think so. Except he's got to really overcome not just the doubt in himself, but like he's got to, he did that. He had that conversation with his dad and able to do that, to not worry about the stuff that he thought that his parents wanted to do, but what he was supposed to do. And he does it. He does it in a way where he just comes in, is pure of heart, beats Ultraman, throws him out of the freaking into the black hole. Krypto comes in. I love that moment when Krypto comes in and kind of violently throws Lex all over the place. There's one guy in there again that with the big mustache that felt out of place. It felt again very Guardians to me. There's a couple of things that were out of place, like that the one guy that was just it was very James Gunn, but it felt a little out of place. The mustache guy, like there were a couple of characters that just didn't feel real, and when they didn't feel real, it kind of sucked me out of it. That guy was one of them. Ms. Tessmacher sometimes was one of them. But Lex gets his comeuppance, gets taken out, and Superman saves the day. So then you have that moment at the end where everything kind of is restored. He goes back to the Fortress of Solitude. It's really a nice moment with his parents. Now, this is where I'm probably going to have people who are not going to agree with me, because I didn't read the Supergirl comics. I didn't. I get the bit. She's drunk. She comes in because she can go to the Red Sun planets, and that you can get drunk on the Red Sun, but you can't get drunk here because of the metabolism and all that. Great. Calling him a bitch and dude and all that stuff. I'm like, that's a full movie? And I like Millie Alcock a lot. I think she's great. And I was excited when she was cast, but that's the whole movie's going to be like that? I don't know. I was excited to see Supergirl. Maybe I got to see the tone of it, and come back and join me after I see the movie in a year or 2 years from now, and I'm going, oh boy, was I wrong. The way they set this thing up very differently from what I was expecting. But I didn't love the first introduction of Supergirl. But what I did like was understanding why Krypto was such an asshole, because she's an asshole. And you're like, oh, okay. There's two. Now you totally get it. And he even says it. He's like, well, that's why. But I think that's from what I know, and you're probably already writing this in the comments, is that she had a much more effed up life than Clark did. So she's more kind of screwed up. And that's kind of what the whole movie is about. So maybe that plays. Again, only seeing what I saw in that particular scene. But I could then go back and say, you know what? Now that I know this character more than I did in the way that they set it up in this next movie, that scene makes a lot more sense. So that's to be determined down the line. We'll see. But the whole entire movie, watching it going, okay, look, this is a solid start. See what they're doing. The first scene that they do is just him and Krypto kind of looking out at, that basically that I think the first image that James Gunn ever released, and is kind of looking at the planet, kind of flying in the sky. I thought that was a nice, sweet moment. And then the next one is him and Mr. Terrific with the cracks and the things. You couldn't fix that? And he's like, oh, I'm such a jerk sometimes. This is a cute moment. It wasn't, and it wasn't, and it stayed true to the fact that these post-credit scenes are just going to be kind of like little nuggets for you. They're not necessarily anything that's going to tie anything together. And I think that's smart for them to do right now, because it allows you to just make your movies. Because if you're dependent on, oh, well, we promised in that post-credit scene that that's coming next. Unless you've shot the movie already and you know that it's coming next, don't do it. But overall, like I said, these are my thoughts on what I saw inside of this movie. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm sure if you had criticisms on it, what were they? Were they similar to mine? Were they different than mine? Did you not agree with my stuff? Did you agree with the stuff that I had problems with? Were there other things that I didn't have problems with that you did have problems with? Were there things that I didn't like that you loved? Put your thoughts in there. I'm going to say the same thing I did in my non-spoiler review. Not everybody listened, but I'll do it anyway. Let's see if everybody's going to be nice to each other in the comments. Is that possible? Of course it isn't. But let's try. Everybody try to be nice and have conversations with one another. Can you do that? Let's be one of those people that says, hey, you agree with me? Wonderful. Let's see. I like that too. You didn't agree with me? How come? Let's have a conversation. Or are there going to be 75,000 insults hurled either, I guarantee you, for the things that I liked? Of course he did. That's a paid shell. And for all the criticisms I had about humor. You don't like humor. You don't like anything. You're Mr. Negative. Fine. Whatever. Just whatever you want to do. Have a conversation, though, in general. Try to do that, if possible. I'm begging you. Have a conversation. It's just a movie. Put your thoughts in there. Have a conversation. Subscribe to the channel. I'm hoping by the time that you guys see this that we've already surpassed 200,000 subscribers. We're very close. So if not, and you're brand new to the channel, hit that button. Thanks for being here, guys. I appreciate you. See you later. Bye. All right, summer. It is here. More sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. Number one thing you don't want to do all summer, you don't want to spend hours cooking inside. Trust me, it's hot. That's where Factor comes in. Factor chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. Factor powers your day sun up to sundown with nutritious breakfast, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. Factor has your whole day covered. Enjoy more this summer and get Factor if you want all the flavors and none of the fuss. Absolutely love Factor. You guys know I've been talking about Factor forever because it is so good, and they give you the options that you need. If you have a particular diet that you're on, that for me is like, I'm all about the protein right now, guys. And boy, did they have just delicious stuff. I love coming back from, if it's a day at work, if it's something that I need to do, if I'm coming back from the gym, Factor has me covered. So get started at factormeals.com/Christian50off. Use that code Christian50off to get 50% off free. shipping on your first box. That's code Christian50off at factormeals.com/Christian50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/Christian50off.